I'm gonna start crying.
Vibes.
So, past released, this is Red Hot Wings, a show with Hot Wings Even Hotter Questions. I'm your host, Megan Klein, and today we have an economics professor who knows economics like the back of his hand, basically. Expert in various different disciplines within economics. We have Professor Spence. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. This is like the greatest thing I've done on campus.
Really?
I was thinking about this last week, and I was like, when you asked me to do this, I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
But then I had to temper that a little bit, like all right, major
I
life
appreciate
events.
the enthusiasm.
Yeah.
There's a quote I wanted to bring up just to start, where it's like, obviously, students love you, fan favorite, but one of the quotes I found online was, "Great professor, but his handwriting looks like hieroglyphics."
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Students can be a little bit brutal sometimes, but you know, like that's sort of fair game. I just gave back some exams today, and there were some unhappy faces.
Oh no.
One of the exams is the first time ever. So I've been here for 10 years, and first time ever I've had an exam covered in blood.
Wow.
I actually have it in my bag.
What was the? I'd love to see. What was the bloody nose?
I don't know, yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Maybe
after.
Yeah. It's like before eating, maybe I shouldn't handle the bloody exam.
No. Okay. Are you ready?
All right. So what do we do? We just eat it?
Yeah.
Cheers. It's good.
That's good. No spicy.
It really complements the cold, old chicken nuggets.
No, I heated them up.
I mean that in the nicest way.
Mm-hmm.
All right, not hot at all. You agree?
Not at all. I agree.
Salty, vinegary, good.
I noticed that you have recently picked up teaching again in Mendoza for the MSF
How did you find
program,
that
and it's like something pricing. What is it? Strategic
pricing.
pricing. How have you seen like picking this up again, like teaching graduate students versus like your massive undergraduate classes, and Mendoza versus like a straight econ arts and letters class?
No, that's a good question. My experience teaching MBAs and business school master students is that it's a little bit more transactional, which kind of makes sense because they're sort of a different stage in their career. They want something a little bit different out of it. It's an accelerated program in this case where it's only a year, and so to some extent it's like, you know, we have a year to do this thing. You better teach us some tangible skills. Also, don't give us any busy work. They're just older too, so like, you know, teaching principles of micro, you know, teaching 18-year-old students who are sort of fresh out of high school and are kind of like still, especially in the fall, like they're wide-eyed, you know, in these like big gigantic lecture halls. You kind of tell them like, hey, learn this because there's going to be an exam on it, and they're like, okay, and then, you know, they learn it. You've been there. So it's different. You know, you get to be a little more careful, I think, in kind of how you motivate things. It's less fun to some extent.
I can see that.
But yeah, I used to be pretty jaded about MBA programs.
What do you think?
I just thought like, oh, you know, there's not a whole lot of value here. It's like, it's not education in its pure form. Now I'm actually to a point where I'm like, oh no, like if you go to a top MBA program, like they'll wine and dine you, you go on trips, like it's like, a lot of you all will go out and get a job for a while, you'll work really, really hard. If you want to take a year or two and just like be around other cool people, learn some hot takes, like, and just enjoy it for a second, that's fine. Like, you know, from a consumption standpoint, I think like maybe an MBA is like a good thing.
Yeah. Are you ready for the second one?
Yeah.
This is classic Tabasco, green pepper sauce.
Is it
mild and zesty?
Are we going mild to hot?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, it's not it is quite a exponential curve, I would say, near the end.
Okay.
This is 1 out of 5.
I have a surprise too.
What did you
for later? Yeah.
You have more?
No.
Okay.
Well.
Is it ice
not
cream?
Exactly. That's it. It's a nice cooling treat.
Ooh.
It's not.
I'm scared. What is your classic like go-to sauce when you go to like Chick-fil-A or something? Or sorry, Chipotle.
Chick-fil-A offers. They have Texas Pete sometimes, like little packets.
What about
sometimes?
Chipotle? Like, do you go for the verde or the
I'll do both.
Both?
If I get a bowl, I'll do both.
You're
Yeah. My wife loves Frank's Red Hot. It's just like a go-to hot
Yeah.
sauce. And Frank's is good. It's fine. I grew up with like Texas Pete, which is less popular up here, but it's like
Yeah.
I think it's like better all-around hot sauce.
Yeah.
My humble opinion. Good.
It's different.
I have a
Honestly,
buddy-
less spicy.
Yeah, but it tastes good. I have a buddy who lives in New Orleans, and Tabasco, where they make Tabasco, is like this little island off the coast of Louisiana.
I didn't know that.
And so they ferment the peppers there, which means like you kind of like let them pickle in their own stuff, and so they'll blend up the hot sauces, and then like typically there'll be some pulp left over, some like leftovers. Like an entrepreneurial restaurant in New Orleans will fry chicken, or they do this now, and they take the pulp. Oh, it's not Tabasco, it's Crystal,
Yeah,
but whatever.
yeah.
But they take the pulp from this,
Wow.
and they put like the pulp, it's like kind of like this like mash stuff on top of the fried chicken. It's like hot and vinegary, and it's really good.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
I know you used to host the podcast All Else Equal. What have you like learned from that? And also, why did it stop? And what gave you the inspiration for it? It's kind of all of those.
COVID was the inspiration.
Okay.
Because it's like,
Classic.
yeah, right. It's like we came back in fall 2020, and everybody's wearing masks, and everybody's distanced, and like you couldn't have relationships with, it was difficult to have relationships with faculty. So this guy over in Mendoza, I think it was his idea, Jason Reed, he's a finance professor, he says, okay, maybe we can sort of recreate these conversations between faculty and students in like a more informal environment by like running this podcast. So we like solicited questions from students, and then we would go and we'd talk to an expert on campus, and then we'd record it as a podcast. That was the inspiration. I hate listening to my voice. It's just terrible.
I agree.
But as part of like the editing process, I would listen to these things. It made me hate my voice less. And then also realize like if you want to do what you're doing now, it's actually a ton of background work.
Yes.
And so if
Mental
you wanted to like,
preparing.
yeah, so why did the podcast go away? Way too much work. If you wanted to have like a meaningful conversation with the person, you can't just like sort of go in there and just spitball stuff.
Yeah.
You do a ton of stuff,
Yes,
background research.
Yeah.
So we tried it. We were hitting every week for 2 semesters, but then like it's like, all right, this guy, maybe it'll reboot at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you ready for the next one? Okay. This one is Verde, spice level 5 out of 10.
Do you like Dave's Hot Chicken on campus? Or
Yes, I do. I'm a big fan.
They're extreme. It's
Have
really
you-
hot.
Wait, the Reaper?
It's
Yeah.
super hot.
I heard the Reaper is equivalent or very similar to the last one.
Okay.
So, quite excited for that.
Cheers. Pretty good. Not too bad.
I agree.
Have you seen the Hot Ones with Shaq?
No.
He's like, I'm not gonna make a face. And I'm sort of, part of me wants to be like, once we get down here, it's like, I'm not gonna make a face. We'll see.
You did your thesis, I don't know, it was PhD, on textbook pricing and why it was like monopoly. What were your findings on that? And how did you get inspired to do that? Specific question.
So, when I decided to go to grad school, I was like, I love economics. Like, I love taking the class. I love learning about the ideas, but I had no idea like what I wanted to do within economics. I think I put down on the form to UNC like, I want to do macro, and then I realized like during first year macro, like, I don't want to do macro. And then I've always been sort of salty that, when I was a freshman, I was 18. I go to the bookstore on campus at University of South Carolina. And back then, like, Amazon was like less of a thing. So this is way back. This is in 2003, okay? And I must have spent $600 or $700 on books. And at some point over the course of the semester, like I'm sitting next to a buddy, and they're like, hey, or I was complaining about like the books being so expensive, and they're like, you could have bought on Amazon for whatever. You could have bought a previous edition. Like there's like learning that takes place in the market, and so being sort of salty towards the bookstore. And then sort of thinking about models of consumer behavior, I was thinking like, oh, this would be a good opportunity to sort of think about like what the returns to experience are in the market. And there were sort of people that had been experimenting with like these models where people will strategically take like different types of drugs, like you take a particular type of drug and maybe you learn like, okay, there's something specific about this drug that like it works well for me, or maybe try something else. And so that might generate some interesting patterns in consumer behavior. So there's a value in experimentation and so forth. But those sort of things like, like the college textbook market is a market where you have people that come in inexperienced, and then there's this very structured.
Yeah.
They gain experience. Yeah. And so like you're trying to monetize. Yeah, it's just trying to figure out the returns to experience. And it essentially just sort of a middle finger to the bookstore, like, hey, like you guys are ripping people off and you're exploiting freshmen and so forth. And like those were the findings. And then just like with all good academic research, like nothing came of it.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. In part because like it's kind of obvious already. It's like unfortunately like a lot of academic research. It's like it's kind of obvious, but like can you really, really, really precisely identify this effect? And can you put a number behind it? And that's what it was. And so like it was fun. It was a ton of fun doing the project. Going through all the steps for years. But I'm I was glad to kind of put it to bed.
Yeah. I mean, you don't require textbooks in most of your classes, do you?
Yeah, because that's the reason. It's because I'm still salty about the bookstore.
Exactly. No, that's good. That's kind of professors. Or like the ebook ones, which are still crazy. Because they're like...
at the end of the day, like you look at these revisions, the 15th edition of calculus is, you don't really need 15 editions of calculus. All right, like not a lot has changed in calculus in the past, I don't know, 200 years or something like this. So a lot of what they're doing is just killing off the used market. I actually had a shady guy come up to me at Notre Dame, and he's like, this is like 8 years ago or something. He's like, hey, you write your own textbook. We'll sign an agreement. We'll give you these royalties. All right. And then he's like, if you do this, then I'm going to come back in a couple years, and then we're going to sign a revision agreement. He's like, you don't even have to change anything, but we'll kill off the first edition, and we'll only sell the second edition in the bookstore because like they didn't want used copies floating around, right? Because the used copies compete with the new copies, and so it's like, oh, we'll completely kill off the used market. You don't need to change anything just so we can jack up the prices. And it's like, oh man, you gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
Like, this is.
That's a hard no.
Yeah.
It's tough.
I should have done that.
Yeah. Make much money.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you ready for the four?
Definitely.
Okay. This is classic Tabasco habanero sauce. So.
There we go. That's hotter.
So much chewing.
That's good.
That is really good.
I don't know why I hate regular Tabasco.
So for your engagements on Notre Dame outside of just teaching, like what are your favorite? Like being an advisor to, I forget that club, but also like I know your thoughts on the Econ Club and helping out with that.
Econ Formal was the worst thing that we do by far. I'm just kidding. I got kicked out of the last Econ Formal. I was just telling somebody, the students were asking me earlier in Intermediate Micro, like, we're doing a formal again. And the answer is yes, the Econ Club is doing one. But my wife and I chaperoned the last Econ Formal, and let's see, I don't want to name names. There are some representatives of SAO who are not the most efficient and not the kindest, and put up sort of unnecessary roadblocks so they're kind of like correctional officers, like the worst types, where it's like, hey, we have the ability to exert power on a group of people, let's do it, and just for the fun of it. So anyway, there were some people like that were running this event.
Was this the one in the fall? Wasn't it like Econ?
It was up in Maine.
Econ Poly Science.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. And I was mad at them for various types of reasons. They were mad at me because some kid got drunk, and they wanted me to like be mad. They didn't want me to do anything, but they just wanted me to be mad. And I just couldn't muster up the whatever. Actually, that's kind of what I expected. So I'm just like talking with students, and like somebody comes over, they're like, all right, you can leave. And I'm like, I can leave or I have to leave? And they're like, you have to leave. And I was like, oh, man, like, all right. So my wife and I got kicked out of Econ Formal. And like, yeah. So anyway, that's the worst event.
Yeah.
Best event, best thing. I get to travel with the students from these clubs, sometimes to DC or Chicago, to do these like monetary policy or fiscal policy challenges, the competitions with other schools. That sounds really nerdy. It is really nerdy. But it's so much fun, especially going to DC. Like, going for a couple days, they compete. These students have like worked super hard for something that they had no real like, extrinsic motivation to do. Like, it's not like it's gonna get them an internship with an investment bank. It's not like it's going to do anything other than they just kind of like learning about fiscal policy. And we go and it's like, you do the competition. Typically, they do very, very, very well. And you go walk around DC at night and see the monuments. Like, that's a ton of fun. Yeah, like to be able to do that like as a work event, similar. That's work is like kind of amazing. This place is sort of it's a strange place in a good way.
Yeah. What about your summer? Like
in Berlin is amazing. Yeah. So the past 3 summers we've gone to Berlin for 6 weeks, and it's like it's like a better balance of like work and family stuff. My wife goes with me, my son goes with me, and we stay in the same sort of flat structure as like the students. And so like it's kind of like being more in community with students, which is fun for 6 weeks, but not forever. But my wife is actually kind of annoyed with me. I probably shouldn't say that on film. For working too much during the semester sometimes. Yeah, like coming home late and things like that. Yeah.
Okay, so this one is Neil's Real Deal Smoked Onion. It is quite smoky.
Is it part of the hot one set or is it something different? Okay.
These last 4 are.
Okay.
3 or 4.
He's 3.5, and he's starting to get opinions, and it's like super annoying.
What kind of opinions?
Like.
Oh, this one's good.
I like this. He hates all food right now. He hates all food that is not like Cheetos or candy, and that's annoying.
That is annoying, but like valid. I love Cheetos.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, like, yeah. And there's all these things where it's like, oh, why do I have to explain this to you? Why don't you not just like know this ahead of time? But it's like he's 3, and so I have to remind myself, like, you're just 3. Like, I do actually have to teach you things. That should be something I do at some point.
Yeah. Now having a kid here, how is your right?
Good, yeah.
How is your like experience and like perspective on ND in regards to like your family and like that support with like faculty? Because I know they're pretty good.
You mean like how is Notre Dame in terms of promoting or not like good positive family relationships and things?
I guess that's like the underlying presumption.
Yeah.
Or just
so
how is your
right.
Yeah.
No, that's actually right.
Okay.
I would not have thought that'd be something that undergrads would think about. So, it's actually like Forbes just named Notre Dame like the top large employer within some sort of category out of like 700 organizations, and like it's a great employer in terms of like monetary and non-monetary things, benefits. As a department, we try and be very supportive of building this large families or whatever size families. I'll give you sort of an anecdote. It's like I used to do freelance stuff for Duke's Business School, and I taught with their MBA program. And my current wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, came with me on one of these trips to Berlin, and they were doing like a bike tour, and I was like, hey, can my girlfriend come with me? And I was sort of teaching her this thing, and they're like, nah, that's weird. But they're like, no, we don't want like family involved in this because this is like a very like business center, like whatever program center thing. The experience I've had with studying abroad programs at Notre Dame is like, you please bring your family, like please, like that's part of like the important part of like your mental health, and like like the important part of just like respecting an individual outside of like their purely contractual work relationship. And so I've had the exact opposite experience with Notre Dame, which is great because Notre Dame's not perfect, but at least in that place they're sort of putting their money and emphasis where their mouth is.
Yeah, I agree. Are we ready for the next one?
Absolutely.
Ow, my God, it's in my cut. Ow. You can taste the apple.
That's awesome.
That one's really good.
You like rye bread?
Mm-hmm.
Or like caraway seeds?
It's like the back
I was
end.
not expecting that. Yeah.
I know you've been, principles and micro is like your main, and then you also teach stats sometimes, macro sometimes, and like labor econ. What has been like your favorite course you teach? It's just based.
It's principles of micro. It absolutely is. Yeah. When I got hired as a lecturer, which means like no research responsibilities. Come in, teach a bunch of bodies, teach a bunch of sections, and there was teach 3 sections of principles of micro, don't blow it, so forth. And so that was my initial assignment. And it's like principles of micro is one of these things where it's like take all the cool, fun ideas from economics, sort of writ large, because like principles of macro is just like, hey, y equals c plus I plus g plus nx. Here's some accounting identities, whatever. It's kind of boring. Principles of micro is like think about opportunity cost and think about comparative advantage and think about Coase theorem. It's like all the cool ideas from economics, but you don't have to really get into like the nitty-gritty details.
It's like intermediate.
Yeah, like what I was doing in intermediate micro today was like I just like threw up these graphs, and there's like literally like there's like a billion things going on, and there are insights there, and like you build up to it. It's cool, but it's you got to do a lot more work to get the additional payoff versus like principles of micro. It's like these like cute little stories about what if there's this train that passes by the farmer and like whatever. And I still even teaching like back to back to back, and I've been doing it. This is like the 15th semester I've taught principles of micro. It doesn't get old. Like that's awesome.
Yeah. Are you ready?
Yes.
Cheers. This one's really drippy.
It's good, sweet.
What has been like your favorite student interaction or like experience that you've had so far?
Oh man.
I guess in the fall.
Well, let's see. I had somebody throw a snowball into D-bar 155 during the first snowfall. That was interesting. They like during class.
Oh, they brought it in.
No, I brought snow in and threw snowballs. And I'd like deputize this big guy in the back, Thomas. Like, all right, Thomas, like you're deputized. Like, if somebody comes back here and starts throwing snowballs again, like, go beat him up. And he was about it. Like, that was a good one. I don't know. Like, you have like sort of like random interactions with students where you never really kind of know what's going to like make an impact on me or on the student, right? Like it's sort of, I had to take my son to he has to go see like a neurologist for a particular thing. So every year we have to take him down to Indy to the Children's Hospital down there. We go see a neurologist, and like it's never fun, right? Because it's like being in a children's hospital is miserable because you see like some of the status stuff in the world, and then it's sort of one of these things where it's like, hey, please tell me my kid's okay, because the alternative is like very, very bad. It's like I'm really grumpy, and then we're in the doctor's office for forever, and like I'm sick, and I'm like not happy, and like we're like waiting for like an hour once we get back. And like I did have a moment where I was like, you know what, like all right, I need to set a good example for my son. Like I'm really, really ticked off. I'm gonna like suck it up because I have the ability to choose to like be in a good mood if I want to. And this guy comes in, and he was the resident. And he comes in, and he's like, oh, and I was like able to like muster like, you don't need to apologize. Like I'm not mad, whatever. But it turns out he was my former student.
Wow. Yeah,
he was my former student from spring 2021. A guy named Billy, Billy Boucher, and he's like a resident neurologist at Indy Hospital. That was an amazing interaction, and like it's one of these things where it's like, if I'd been a jerk, like, and I felt like being a jerk. Is like, and sometimes I am a jerk. I'm not trying to be virtuous or act like I'm like super virtuous. But it is like, he's like, you never kind of know like when that like a little small thing is gonna make a big difference. Because if I'm a jerk, we wouldn't have had this like great conversation with him.
Yeah. Are we ready for the last one?
Yeah.
I personally don't think I am. Okay, so it's called The Last Experience.
Is this the hottest one of the hot ones?
Yeah. Okay. Cheers.
Cheers. like doable.
I'm gonna start crying. Get this away from me. I think it's the chewing
So
that
it
gets you.
builds. So my son, we've been reading
Cheers.
this. We've been reading this book on like fermenting peppers. It's kind of like a recipe book.
I'm listening.
You're gonna hate me for the surprise. Okay.
Oh no.
But we started watching a couple videos of like people eating hot peppers, and he thinks these are hilarious. I think these are hilarious. But people say like the part of the trick, if you're gonna eat peppers, you gotta chew them a little bit, otherwise it's gonna hurt your stomach. Maybe that's not the same thing with hot sauce, but
I don't
you
think
did
so.
good.
Thanks. Not my first time eating them. This was so bad. We were panicking.
All right, you ready for the surprise?
Sure.
You don't have to eat this.
Oh, I'm so scared. I think you should eat it.
All right, check this out.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. Anyways,
Okay.
you take hot peppers. You can either stick them underneath, like put them on a weight. It's like how you make sauerkraut or something traditionally. You put them under a weight in like salted water. And there's like this stuff, this like lactobacillic, whatever bacteria that like is on the peppers that'll start to break them down. This is like the traditional way of making pickles. It's like they I don't know the chemical process, but essentially they give off this like acidic solution, and they eat whatever parts of the pepper, and they exude carbon dioxide. So if you're fermenting anything, like part of that process is like it's eating carbohydrates, and then it's like burping out CO2. And so I have these like containers in my house where like there's a bunch of stuff underneath a weight, underneath in salty water. You look so sad right now. And then
I'm listening. This is fascinating.
and then there's like a top with like a little water bubbler, so
Uh-huh.
the CO2 can come out, but air can't come in. And as long as you keep it like oxygen out of the environment, mold can't grow. So mold only grows in like oxygenated environments. Okay, so the other way to do it is this. You get a vacuum sealer, you put a bunch of peppers in this is like 2% salt by weight. So if like this is a kilogram of peppers, you put 20 grams of salt. That's right. And then you vacuum seal all the air out of it. But look at it. This is all the gas it's giving off. And like sometimes it'll explode. So I haven't burped it. This is a month. It's not dated. I'm like bad at organization. I think it's about a month old. So it's, if you look at it, it's gonna be habaneros, Thai chilies,
Oh my gosh.
onions. I think there's garlic in there too. There's a garlic clove.
Okay.
I thought about blending it up and making hot sauce. I've done it with some of them. But I was like, now it'd be more fun if we just like eat a pepper. Can we eat a pepper?
Not particularly.
You don't have to.
I'll watch you eat a pepper.
I'm gonna open it up. There. I also stole.
My answer could change
I stole.
in 10 minutes.
I stole some of Isaiah's scissors, just for
They're
this.
really
event.
cute.
Aren't they?
My answer might change in 10 minutes.
All right.
So you're gonna give
It's
me-
gonna be like the gas is actually like a little bit caustic.
It's just so exciting.
So me and Chloe Gibbs' husband did this about a month ago. We ate the habaneros or something like that out of it. It's super hot. It's fine.
Okay. I don't know why mine.
Not that right.
Is it the longer?
It might not even be that hot. I haven't tried it yet.
The longer
Okay, so-
you ferment it, does it get spicier?
It actually gets a little bit milder, and it becomes like pickled. So I actually have like this like a thing that measures the pH, and it's like neutral. I think is 7. You're shooting for like a pH of 3 or something like that. That'll it's like essentially shelf stable. Yeah. And like hippy dippy people on Instagram are like, oh, it's got these like live cultures and whatever, which is good for your gut or something like that, and whatever.
Which one would be the least
The
spicy?
least is gonna be like, actually an onion. Try an onion. You like onion? Okay.
I do like onions. Okay.
All right. I'll do like a red chili.
I'm gonna let my ice melt first. I'm like hiccuping. Okay, I'll start with this. Cheers. This is so cool.
It's not salty enough. So I was making sauce. It needs more salt. Next.
Are you going above and beyond right now?
Hot, but not too hot. Okay. That's the only party trick I have. Oh, that's a little hot. What would you want somebody to ask you if you were on this?
I don't know.
You just came up with a whole bunch of questions. My wife's birthday is on Ash Wednesday, and I want to have like a super like solemn and somber birthday party for her.
That's good.
But then March 17th, so I think your entire time here, you will, it's like every 4 years this happens, where St. Patrick's Day is not on spring break.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's by design. They don't want St. Patrick's Day to be
On campus.
on campus.
They don't want to deal with that.
Right. The Monday, March 17th is St. Patrick's Day. My advice is maybe it's during Lent. Maybe treat it with a little bit of moderation.
Good advice.
I think that's the only advice.
Good
I have.
advice. Okay, I'll have one.
Okay.
Which one is the least of the peppers?
The green ones. There you go.
Oh, that's actually really yummy.
I know, it's kind of disappointingly mild. It's supposed to be hot peppers. The fermenting process really does like kind of knock some of the heat out. They're a little hot.
That's good. That's good.
Check it out. The garlic will turn like blue.
Why?
And it's like some sort of chemical reaction, and a smart scientist knows what's happening. But I don't.
I have accidentally turned garlic blue.
Really?
I don't really know why.
That's it?
I think it's when you put it with lemons and like milk. When you're making like a lemon cream sauce, sometimes the garlic turns. I think it's the heat.
Okay.
It turns like blue or green.
Cool.
So maybe it's something. Maybe it's.
Do you like to
acidity.
cook?
I do like to cook.
Yeah, okay.
I cooked a lot more abroad.
Yeah. That's one of the best parts. Actually, one of the most fun things about going abroad in the summer is like
Seeing
these students have no idea how to cook. And so one thing my wife and I will try and do is we'll try to encourage them either like to come to our place or whatever, or like you want
Teach them how to
barbecues.
cook.
Yeah, teach them how to grill or teach them how to cook. My wife was like teach them how to like make potato salad and stuff like that. It's a ton of fun. Like sometimes they are like, and this was me when I was 18 or so, but they are like abysmal at like handling kitchen utensils. It's amazing. It's so funny,
Yeah.
and it's just like part of these things that like you learn over time.
Yeah, me and my friends, shallow fried chicken, like tenders, and you know the Trader Joe's chili lime, like fake Takis?
No.
They're like, do you know Takis though?
Yeah.
They're
no
like
thanks.
fake Takis.
Okay.
But basically we like crushed them all up
Oh.
and then deep fried it in that.
That sounds
or
amazing.
shallow fried it.
Yeah.
And then, it was really good.
RFK is gonna take that away from us. These, my wife has been for years now. She's been saying like, oh, Red 40, and I'm like, where are you getting this whole Red 40 stuff? It's freaking Instagram. It's like she gets all of her health information from Instagram, and it's like, oh, I can't have Red 40 anymore.
Yeah.
That's the other my thing that I'm
Very
grumbly
chill.
about.
Yeah. Well,
All right.
epic. Thank
Cool.
you so much.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I should introduce you.
Sorry,
I'm Forrest.
I-
I'm Claire.